In 1885, in the remote outskirts of Blanco County, Texas, a series of deaths stunned the community and bewildered the local authorities. The victims were 7 brothers, all members of the Hartwell family, a reclusive clan that had settled in the region decades earlier. They lived together in a large wooden farmhouse, surrounded by thick groves of oak and mesquite, maintaining minimal contact with nearby townsfolk. The Hartwells were known for their privacy, strange habits, and a reputation steeped in superstition. Though the family raised cattle and farmed corn, they often dealt in obscure herbal remedies and were rumored to practice folk healings, sometimes whispered to be something darker. In the spring of that year, within just 28 days, all 7 brothers were found dead under conditions that defied logical explanation. No gunshots, no wounds, no indication of struggle. Their bodies were discovered one after another in different parts of the property, some in bed, others in the fields, one by the well. Each of them looked like they had simply collapsed, their expressions eerily calm. Panic spread quickly across the region. Word of the unexplained deaths traveled fast, attracting both religious alarmists and scientific curiosity. At first, local doctors were summoned to examine the bodies. The first corpse, Caleb Hartwell, the eldest, was reportedly still warm when the physician arrived. His skin was pale but unblemished, his eyes open and glassy, his limbs stiffened, beyond what should have occurred within the first hour of death. When the doctor attempted to close his jaw, it wouldn't budge, as if it had fused shut. Over the following weeks, each of the brothers succumbed in a similar way. With no pattern to their time of death and no observable cause, what baffled the medical examiners more than the deaths themselves was what they found or didn't find inside the bodies. During the autopsy of the third brother, Nathaniel, a team of 2 doctors made a chilling discovery. When the chest cavity was opened, the organs were not in the expected condition. Instead of soft tissue, they encountered a bizarre rigidity. The heart, lungs, and liver were intact in shape, but had the texture of stone. Attempting to cut into the heart, the scalpel snapped at the edge. Further attempts with surgical saws yielded only sparks, and the same result: each organ had turned to a mineral-like state. Yet there was no sign of decay, calcification, or disease. They appeared fossilized, but in perfect form. No known pathology or environmental factor could explain how this could occur in multiple individuals in such a short span of time. The doctors sent samples to a university lab in Austin, hoping for a scientific explanation. Weeks passed with no response. Eventually, a letter arrived advising the samples had been misplaced and that any further inquiry should be directed elsewhere. This response only deepened the mystery and suspicion. Soon after, local authorities advised the Hartwell property be sealed off. Family members who remained 3 sisters and an elderly aunt were relocated under government supervision. Their statements were vague and often contradictory. One sister insisted her brothers had been taken back by the earth, while the aunt, nearly blind and half-mad, rambled about a pact made generations ago under the root of the old tree. With no crimes identified and no external signs of violence, the case was quietly closed. The county filed the deaths as natural causes. Despite internal reports listing the autopsy findings as anomalous and inconclusive, the townspeople spoke less and less of the Hartwells, some out of fear, others due to a strange sense of collective forgetting. Rumors circulated of government men in unmarked carriages visiting the property late at night and removing boxes from the house. Others claimed that glowing lights could be seen hovering above the Hartwell field during thunderstorms. Despite these accounts, no formal investigation was ever reopened. The farmhouse was left to rot and eventually collapsed in the early 1900s. Today, only the stone foundation remains, partially overgrown with vines and thistle. The family crypt, however, still stands sealed, unmarked, and heavily weathered. It is surrounded by rusting iron fencing and a dense patch of trees where birds are never seen to land. Attempts to access the crypt by amateur explorers have always failed, either due to structural collapse or a strange feeling of dread that sends visitors away before they reach the entrance. Locals continue to warn outsiders to steer clear, citing illness, hallucinations, and bad dreams that follow. You home for those who spend too much time near the ruins. Historians and researchers have occasionally tried to dig into the Hartwell records, only to discover missing birth certificates, incomplete census data, and a suspicious absence of medical documentation for the 7 brothers.
Ow.
Their names are only found in property deeds and a few scattered newspaper clippings, which themselves were mysteriously retracted days after publication. Despite growing interest from paranormal circles and alternative science groups, no academic institution has published anything on the Hartwell deaths. The case exists only as a curiosity passed down in oral tradition, often dismissed. As rural legend or folklore, those who have seen the old physician's notes pass secretly from generation to generation in Blanco County tell a different story, one of impossible anatomy, mineralized hearts, and 7 brothers whose deaths were not only unexplainable, but part of something far older than science is willing to admit. When the first autopsy was performed on Caleb Hartwell, the eldest of the 7 brothers, local physician Dr. Franklin Moore encountered something that would haunt him for the remainder of his life. The body had shown no sign of external trauma, nor any abnormal coloration that might suggest poisoning or infection. Yet the internal findings were unlike anything in the annals of recorded medicine. Upon opening the thoracic cavity, Dr. Moore was immediately struck by the unnatural stiffness of the internal organs. The heart, though perfectly preserved in shape and structure, had the consistency of quartz. His scalpel, sharp and well-maintained, glanced off the surface of the heart with a metallic clink. The lungs were similarly petrified, their alveolar patterns visible as if captured in stone. Stunned, he halted the procedure and summoned a colleague, Dr. Howard Lyle, from San Antonio, to confirm the findings. Dr. Lyle, equally baffled, performed a second incision along the abdomen and found the same phenomenon. Each organ was fossilized. In place, perfectly formed, but utterly inert and stone-like in texture. Blood vessels were dry and brittle, and the bones, oddly enough, were still soft and organic. Only the soft tissues had undergone this inexplicable transformation. When they attempted to analyze small fragments of the organs, the samples resisted. Chemical breakdown. They did not dissolve in acid nor change structure under heat. Microscopic examination revealed a crystalline matrix never before documented in any biological sample. It bore no resemblance to calcification from disease or to post-mortem mineral deposits seen in ancient remains. Instead, it appeared to be a form of organic mineralization, one that preserved cellular structures and intricate, fossil-like detail while completely transforming the composition. The doctors were at a loss. No pathogen could be isolated. There was no evidence of fungal growth, viral degradation, bacterial infection, bacterial interaction that could explain such a rapid and targeted metamorphosis. What disturbed them? Even more was the complete lack of decomposition. Caleb had been dead for 3 days by the time the autopsy was conducted. Yet there was no odor, no bloating, and no breakdown of tissue. His body was cold and rigid, but as intact as if he had died moments earlier. When the same examination was later performed on the body of Nathaniel, the 3rd brother to die, the results were identical. His organs were also fossilized, yet the outer body was preserved in lifelike condition. His pupils had clouded over, but the corneas were clear. His hair and nails showed no signs of post-mortem change. Temperature inside the body cavity was lower than the surrounding air, as if an unknown cooling agent was at work internally. Rumors soon swirled through the community. Some whispered that the Hartwells had been cursed. Others suggested alien intervention, citing the unnatural preservation and mineral composition. A few desperate individuals posited spontaneous petrification, though no scientific precedent existed for such a phenomenon. Local clergy called the case an abomination against divine order and pressured authorities to halt further examinations. Despite this, the physicians pressed on. They requested the bodies be transported to the nearest university facility in Austin. However, upon arrival, university officials allegedly refused to accept them. Documents from the transport company show that the caskets were redirected to a private address outside Waco, belonging to a shadowy benefactor known only by the initials HAW. When questioned later, the university denied ever receiving the request or handling the bodies. Attempts to trace the samples sent for lab analysis met similar dead ends. Mysteriously, all original notes from Dr. Moore's examinations vanished from his practice just weeks after the last Hartwell brother was buried. His secretary, a young woman named Clara Vance, disappeared around the same time. Her family reported she had gone to visit relatives in Missouri but never arrived. No missing persons report was filed, and Dr. Moore resigned from his post shortly, after citing overwhelming mental fatigue. Years later, his journal was discovered in the possession of a local antiques dealer. Inside, he had written in cryptic detail about his findings, ending each entry with a desperate refrain: "This is not disease, this is design." He described dreams of vast underground cathedrals made of bone and stone where heartbeats echoed, like drums, and fossilized organs pulsed beneath the ground like buried clocks. He believed the transformation inside the Hartwell brothers was not the result of natural decay, but the manifestation of some ancient, intelligent force acting through unknown means. Some speculated the Hartwells had ingested something inherb, a mineral, a parasite. Others suggested a ritual, one tied to the indigenous myths of the area that spoke of stone spirits and sleeping gods beneath the limestone hills, but no foreign substance was found in their food stores or water supply. No toxins were detected in the soil surrounding their home. Everything pointed to a process that had no logical origin. As the months passed, interest in the case dwindled, suppressed by fear, confusion, and perhaps something more intentional. Medical journals refused to publish the findings, even as anonymous letters hinted at similar cases occurring elsewhere but never reported. In remote regions of Appalachia, whispers arose of families dying in their sleep with organs hard as flint. In parts of South America, missionary doctors told stories of petrified lungs hidden deep in caves, preserved like relics. Whether these tales were coincidence or connected remained unknown.
Meanwhile, back in Texas, the crypt containing the
Brothers was sealed by local decree, its construction reinforced with lead and concrete. No one was permitted to exhume the bodies. The order was said to come from higher authorities, though no names were ever listed. Attempts to reopen the investigation were met with silence or threats. The Hartwell name faded from official records. Their property was sold and resold, but no one stayed longer than a few months. Visitors often fell ill. Pets vanished. Electronics malfunctioned near the site. Paranormal investigators tried to gather evidence, but reported corrupted footage and bizarre time lapses. The petrified organs remained a mystery, untouched by science, dismissed by academia, and feared by those who had seen them firsthand. The Hartwell family crypt lies at the edge of a weathered grove in Blanco County, Texas, where the soil grows dry and silent, and even the wind seems hesitant to pass through. It is a low stone structure, built partially underground, sealed by an iron gate and heavy limestone slabs, its existence documented in only a few dusty county records. The crypt is said to contain the remains of the 7 Hartwell brothers, all of whom died in 1885 under unexplained and chillingly identical circumstances. Since the day it was sealed, no institution, scientific, governmental, or ecclesiastical, has officially re-entered the tomb or attempted to study the remains, despite the documented anomalies that surrounded their deaths. Those who have attempted to breach the crypt, whether out of curiosity or academic interest, report encountering a series of inexplicable barriers. In one documented case from the 1930s, a team of university anthropologists arrived with the intention of exhuming the remains for further examination. Armed with legal documents and escorted by county officials, they reached the site only to find the ground trembling softly beneath their feet. As the lead archaeologist placed a hand on the sealed slab, he reportedly experienced a sudden and overwhelming sensation of vertigo and nausea. One by one, the team became disoriented, dizzy, and in some cases incoherent. The expedition was abandoned before the stone gate could be unsealed. and the team returned to their institution claiming the crypt's structural integrity was compromised. No formal report was filed. The university denied the trip had ever occurred. Another attempt in the 1960s involved a private organization specializing in geobiological phenomena, whose funding and origins remain unclear to this day. The group arrived with ground-penetrating radar and spectral analysis equipment. Intent on scanning the interior of the crypt without disturbing it, witnesses claimed that after a few hours on site, the machines began to emit distorted signals, and all recordings taken were corrupted beyond interpretation. Members of the team were later seen burning the malfunctioning equipment behind a local inn. They left town abruptly the next morning, leaving behind a single written note at the sheriff's office that read simply, "They're not sleeping." The most chilling aspect of the crypt is not just the refusal of science to engage with its contents, but the eerie consistency of the reasons why. Institutions that receive inquiries into the Hartwell case respond either with generic dismissals or vague references to ethical complexities. When pressed further, correspondences abruptly cease, and researchers report mysterious delays in communication, misplaced documents, or subtle warnings from unexpected sources. In 1991, freelance journalist named Isabel Trammell began compiling a comprehensive expose on the Hartwell mystery. Her research had led her to several individuals whose grandparents or great-grandparents had been involved in the original autopsies or land seizures. She discovered evidence of a lost medical file describing the organ petrification phenomenon and had gathered enough material for a 10-part investigative series. Before the first installment could be published, she disappeared. Her apartment was found undisturbed, her notes and recordings missing. Police investigation yielded no leads. The newspaper that had agreed to publish her story later issued a brief statement that the series had been postponed indefinitely due to source complications, and the case quietly evaporated from public interest. What few people outside the region know is that the Hartwell crypt is not entirely abandoned. Every 5 years, without announcement, a government vehicle arrives at the site. It is always the same blacked-out windows, no insignias, and always at dawn. A pair of men dressed in civilian clothing enter the site, inspect the perimeter, and leave without interaction. Locals have noted that each visit is preceded by an unusual shift in local weather, sudden drops in temperature, electrical storms that affect only the immediate region, and a persistent low-frequency hum that some say they can feel in their bones rather than hear with their ears. Farmers in the surrounding area have reported livestock acting erratically during these visits, refusing to eat, standing still for hours, or fleeing in panic without cause. Dogs bark at nothing, cats vanish without trace, and birds avoid the airspace above the crypt, the scientific community's refusal to address. The Hartwell case has led to growing speculation about what lies within the tomb. Some believe the brothers' bodies remain in a suspended state, unchanged since the day they were buried. Others claim the fossilization process is ongoing, and that the remains are now more mineral than flesh, perhaps no longer even human in form. There are theories that the Hartwells were not victims of a phenomenon, but participants in it, that their deaths were voluntary, part of a ritual designed to preserve or transform them into something beyond mortality. Those who support this theory often cite an obscure line from a letter written by Martha Hartwell, the youngest sister of the family, to a cousin in Arkansas shortly before the deaths began. They are preparing to return to the stone of beginnings. The blood is ready. The breath will follow. No institution has chosen to investigate the crypt using modern non-invasive techniques. Despite advances in imaging, thermal sensing, and microdrone exploration, not a single accredited university or research body has applied for access or shown interest in revisiting the anomaly. This silence is striking in an age when even the most obscure historical mysteries are subject to relentless re-examination. Some say the inaction is born of fear. Others believe it is due to direct intervention. There are accounts of grant proposals being denied without explanation, tenured professors losing their positions after publicly expressing interest in the case, and of archival documents relating to the Hartwells being restricted without cause. The deeper one digs, the more layers of obfuscation appear, each raising more questions than answers. Locals who live near the site refuse to speak openly about it. A few old families, descendants of those who were present in 1885, maintain oral histories that speak of the brothers in reverent, hushed tones. They do not refer to them as dead, but as the stilled. Children are told never to play near the grove, and new residents who move into the area often find themselves subtly discouraged from exploring the woods. Every once in a while, hikers or ghost hunters find their way to the crypt and come back changed. They speak of time seeming to slow near the entrance, of hearing whispers in unfamiliar languages, of overwhelming feelings of sorrow and detachment. One man claimed to have seen figures standing inside the crypt hall, motionless, backlit by a faint blue glow that flickered like candlelight and then vanished the moment he blinked. Despite the utter absence of physical evidence available to the public, the legend of the Hartwell brothers persists, not because it is sensational, but because of the lengths to which the world has gone to forget it. The silence of science, the vanishing of records, the suppression of inquiry, these form a shadow around the truth more impenetrable than the stone walls of the crypt itself. The idea that 7 men could undergo a transformation so complete, so unnatural, and yet be locked away and ignored by every body that claims to pursue truth defies rational explanation. But it also begs the question that no one dares answer: what is truly resting in the Hartwell crypt, and why has science, with all its instruments and ambition, chosen not to look?